chosen one, there is a quiet question that has followed you for most of your life, even when you didn't have the words for it. Why don't I fit in anywhere? No matter where you go, no matter how much you try to adapt, adjust, or blend in, something always feels slightly out of alignment. It's like walking into rooms where everyone else seems to know the rhythm of the music, but you're hearing a completely different song. You watch people connect effortlessly, form bonds quickly, and move through life with a sense of belonging that feels natural to them, yet for you, belonging feels temporary, fragile, conditional. You can be surrounded by people and still feel separate. You can be understood on the surface but never fully seen underneath. And over time, this creates a deep, lingering confusion. Is something wrong with me? But what if the reason you don't fit in isn't a flaw? What if it's a sign? What if your discomfort in ordinary spaces is not rejection, but redirection? Because some people are not designed to merge with every environment. Some people are shaped by experiences that make them sensitive to energies others ignore, aware of truths others overlook, and guided by an inner compass that refuses to point toward what is merely convenient. When you carry that kind of awareness, fitting in becomes difficult, not because you're incapable, but because you're incompatible with what lacks depth, authenticity, or purpose. You've probably noticed that you can adapt socially if you really try. You can learn the language people speak, laugh at the right moments, participate in the expected ways. But it always feels like performing a version of yourself rather than living as yourself. And performance is exhausting. It drains you because it requires you to dim parts of who you are just to maintain harmony. You sense when conversations are shallow, when connections are conditional, when acceptance depends on how much of yourself you hide, and something within you refuses to stay hidden forever. That inner resistance is not rebellion, it's alignment trying to protect you. From early on, you may have felt different in ways you couldn't explain. Maybe you asked deeper questions than others were comfortable answering. Maybe you noticed emotional undercurrents people pretended weren't there. Maybe you felt drawn to meaning while others were content with distraction. And because you couldn't easily mirror what was around you, you learned to observe. Observation became your survival skill. You watched how people interacted, how they formed identities, how they followed patterns without questioning them. And slowly, you realized something profound. Most people belong because they agree to participate in shared illusions. They accept certain roles, expectations, and definitions without challenging them. But you kept noticing the cracks. You kept sensing that there was more beneath the surface. And once you see beyond appearances, it becomes almost impossible to return to blind participation. That awareness separates you, but it also awakens you. Not fitting in often means you are not meant to be shaped by collective patterns. You are meant to see them clearly, and clarity creates distance. Another reason you struggle to belong is because your growth has rarely been comfortable or linear. Many people bond through shared stability, familiar routines, predictable experiences, similar emotional landscapes. But your journey has likely been marked by intense transformation. You've outgrown environments, mindsets, and even relationships repeatedly. Just when something begins to feel stable, you evolve again. And that constant evolution makes it hard to remain anchored in spaces that don't change with you. You're not the same person you were a year ago, sometimes not even the same person you were a month ago. Your inner world moves quickly, reshaping your priorities, perceptions, and desires. And while others may settle into fixed identities, you keep shedding skins. This continual becoming makes long-term belonging feel elusive, because the moment something defines you, you outgrow the definition. But this isn't instability, it's expansion. You are not meant to remain where you no longer resonate. And resonance is the true foundation of belonging, not proximity, not familiarity, not convenience. Another truth you may sense but rarely articulate is that you feel things deeply, far more deeply than most environments allow. You don't just experience life intellectually, you experience it energetically, emotionally, intuitively. You can sense tension behind smiles, disconnection behind laughter, emptiness behind achievement. And being constantly aware of these layers makes superficial environments feel suffocating. You crave authenticity the way lungs crave air. Without it, something inside you tightens. And because many social spaces operate on unspoken agreements to avoid discomfort, avoid vulnerability, avoid truth. You often feel like an outsider simply because you cannot pretend not to notice what's real. Your depth isolates you, but it also refines you. It teaches you discernment. It teaches you that not every space deserves your presence, and not every connection deserves your energy. Sometimes not fitting in is actually protection from attachments that would dilute your clarity or distract you from your path. There is also a deeper, quieter layer to this experience, a sense that your life is moving according to an invisible design. Even when you try to settle somewhere, something shifts. Doors close unexpectedly, circumstances change, people drift away. It can feel frustrating, even painful, like stability is always just out of reach. But what if these disruptions are not random? What if they are adjustments, subtle course corrections guiding you toward alignment? When you are meant to walk an uncommon path, prolonged comfort in the wrong place becomes a barrier. So life nudges you forward, sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully, and every time you're moved, you feel the ache of displacement again. But you also gain perspective, resilience, and awareness that cannot be developed through stillness alone. You begin to realize that belonging, for you, may not look like permanence in one environment. It may look like deep alignment within yourself wherever you go. That realization changes everything, because the question shifts from, where do I fit, to, where am I most fully myself? And those are very different questions. The truth is, many people who feel they don't fit anywhere are not experiencing absence, they are experiencing preparation. Preparation requires solitude. It requires observation. It requires space between you and the noise of collective expectation so you can hear your own direction clearly. If you had easily blended into every environment, you might never have questioned anything. You might never have discovered the depth of your perception, the strength of your independence, or the clarity of your intuition. Discomfort sharpened those qualities, isolation revealed them, and now you stand in a strange but powerful place, not fully belonging to any external structure, but increasingly rooted within yourself. That inner rootedness is the beginning of true belonging, because fitting in is external acceptance, but belonging is internal alignment, and alignment cannot be forced, negotiated, or performed. It can only be lived. So maybe the reason you don't fit in anywhere is because your role was never to disappear into existing spaces, but to move through them consciously, gathering insight, transforming perspective, and embodying authenticity wherever you stand. You are not unfinished because you feel different. You are not broken because you feel separate. You are not lost because you haven't found a place that feels like home. Sometimes the soul that doesn't fit into ready-made spaces is the soul that is meant to create new ones, spaces defined by depth, truth, presence, and meaning. And until those spaces exist, you walk between worlds, observing, learning, evolving. It may feel lonely at times. It may feel confusing. But it is also profoundly purposeful. Because the path of the one who doesn't fit in is rarely about exclusion, it is about transformation. And transformation always begins at the edge of belonging, never at its center. So the next time you feel that familiar sense of not fitting, don't interpret it as rejection. See it as information. See it as guidance. See it as confirmation that your life is not meant to be lived unconsciously. You are here to experience deeply, see clearly, grow continuously, and live authentically, even when that authenticity separates you from the crowd. Especially then, because the world does not need more people who fit in perfectly. It needs people who live truthfully enough to change what fitting in even means. And maybe, just maybe, that's who you've been becoming all along. What makes this experience even more confusing is that the more you try to understand why you don't fit in, the more you begin to realize it isn't just about people, it's about patterns. You don't fit into expectations, roles, or timelines the way others seem to. While many people move through life following clearly defined paths, study this, become that, behave this way, want these things, you often feel an internal resistance to living on autopilot. Even when you attempt to follow the normal route, something inside you questions it. It's not rebellion for the sake of being different, it's an instinctive awareness that your life cannot be reduced to imitation. You sense when something isn't aligned with who you are becoming, even if it looks successful, acceptable, or admired from the outside. And because of that awareness, you hesitate where others commit, you pause where others rush, and you withdraw where others settle. To the world, this can look like indecision or detachment, but internally, it feels like waiting for truth. You may have noticed that you outgrow things faster than the people around you. Conversations that once felt engaging begin to feel repetitive. Goals that once felt meaningful lose their emotional charge. Environments that once felt exciting start to feel limiting. And when this shift happens, it rarely happens gradually. It feels sudden, like waking up one day and realizing something no longer fits the person you've become. This constant outgrowing can make you feel unstable, as if you can never fully root yourself anywhere. But what is really happening is refinement. Your awareness is continuously adjusting, recalibrating, and expanding. And expansion always creates friction with anything that is static. Most structures in life, social groups, workplaces, cultural norms, are designed to maintain stability, not transformation. But your inner nature leans toward transformation. So when your growth accelerates, those structures begin to feel too tight, too small, too rigid. You're not failing to integrate, you're evolving beyond what once contained you. This is why you may often feel like you exist between versions of yourself. Not who you used to be, but not fully anchored in who you are becoming either. That in-between space can feel disorienting. It lacks clear identity. It lacks certainty. It lacks the reassurance of belonging to something familiar. But it is also where the deepest change happens. The in-between is where old layers dissolve and new awareness forms. It is uncomfortable because it is undefined, but it is powerful because it is creative. You are not just living life, you are being reshaped by it repeatedly. And constant reshaping does not leave much room for permanent belonging in fixed environments. Another reason you feel like you don't fit in is because you instinctively sense when connection is based on roles rather than authenticity. Many relationships function through unspoken agreements. People expect each other to behave in predictable ways, to maintain familiar identities, to reinforce shared comfort zones. But you struggle to maintain connections that require you to stay the same version of yourself indefinitely. When you change internally, you cannot convincingly pretend that nothing has shifted. And this honesty, even when unspoken, disrupts relationships built on stability rather than growth. Some people feel unsettled by your evolution because it reflects their own resistance to change. Others may drift away simply because they connected with who you were, not who you are becoming. And while this loss can be painful, it also reveals something essential. True connection is not based on who you used to be. It is based on who you are willing to become. You may also feel that your inner world is far more vivid than your outer one. While many people are primarily engaged with what is visible, measurable, and immediate, you are often processing thoughts, emotions, intuitions, and reflections that never fully translate into words. You analyze meaning, question motives, sense emotional subtleties, and explore possibilities that others may never consider. This depth of internal experience can make everyday interaction feel strangely incomplete. Conversations may stay on the surface while your mind moves far beneath it. Situations may seem simple to others while you perceive layers of complexity. And because much of your experience is internal, others may not realize how much you are actually seeing, feeling, and understanding. This creates an invisible distance. You are present, but rarely fully met. There is also a quiet independence within you that makes belonging more complicated. Even when you crave connection, you cannot surrender your inner truth just to maintain harmony. If something feels misaligned, you cannot unknow it. If something feels inauthentic, you cannot fully participate in it. This inner integrity acts like a boundary, not one you consciously build, but one that naturally forms around your awareness. It prevents you from merging completely with environments that require compromise of your deeper self. And while this protects your authenticity, it can also make you feel separate, as if closeness always comes with an invisible limit. At times, you may wonder if the problem is that you simply haven't found your people yet. And while there is truth in that idea, the deeper reality is that your sense of belonging is not tied solely to specific individuals. It is tied to alignment of energy, purpose, and awareness. You don't just seek company, you seek resonance. You don't just want interaction, you want understanding. And resonance cannot be forced or manufactured. It appears naturally when depth-micity meets authenticity, when awareness recognizes itself in another. Until then, partial connection may feel insufficient. And so you remain in a strange position, capable of connecting with many, but deeply aligning with few. What makes this path even more complex is that periods of isolation often arrive not because you chose them, but because they were necessary. There are phases in life where external noise must quiet so internal clarity can strengthen. During these times, relationships may thin out, distractions may fade, and you may find yourself spending long stretches in reflection, questioning, or silent growth. From the outside, it may look like loneliness. But internally, something important is reorganizing. Your identity is separating from external validation. Your direction is becoming internally guided rather than socially influenced. And while this process can feel empty at first, it gradually creates a deeper form of stability, one that does not depend on where you are or who surrounds you. You begin to realize that not fitting in has forced you to develop a relationship with yourself that many people never fully form. You've had to become your own reference point, your own reassurance, your own anchor in unfamiliar spaces. And this self-connection becomes a quiet strength. It allows you to walk into new environments without losing yourself. It allows you to leave situations that no longer align without feeling completely ungrounded. It allows you to exist without constant external confirmation that you belong. This is not emotional detachment, it is internal sovereignty. Still, there are moments when the weight of being different feels heavy. Moments when you wish, even briefly, that belonging could be simple, that connection could be effortless, that understanding could be immediate, and those feelings are human. The desire to be seen, accepted, and understood is natural, but over time, you begin to notice something subtle. The more you accept your difference, the less painful it feels. Resistance creates suffering, acceptance creates clarity. When you stop trying to force yourself into spaces that don't reflect your truth, you stop experiencing their rejection as personal failure. You see it as natural incompatibility, like trying to breathe comfortably in air that is too thin. And eventually, a profound shift begins to happen. Instead of asking why you don't fit into existing spaces, you begin shaping the energy of the spaces you enter. Your presence becomes grounding, your authenticity invites honesty, your depth encourages reflection. You stop searching for belonging as something given to you and start embodying it as something that radiates from you. And in that shift, something remarkable unfolds. The right people, the right environments, the right connections begin to recognize you not because you tried to fit in, but because you fully stood in who you are. So perhaps the reason you don't fit in anywhere is not because there is no place for you, but because you were never meant to shrink yourself to match what already exists. You were meant to grow until what aligns with you naturally reveals itself. And that process cannot be rushed, imitated, or forced. It unfolds through awareness, through transformation, through courage, and through the willingness to remain true to yourself even when that truth sets you apart. Not fitting in is not the absence of belonging, it is the path that leads you to discover what real belonging actually is. And once you find that, not outside, but within, you realize something that changes everything. You were never misplaced. You were always being positioned. There comes a point in this journey where the experience of not fitting in stops feeling like a question and starts feeling like a pattern you can finally recognize with clarity. You begin to see that every environment that once rejected you, every group where you felt invisible, every moment where you felt out of place was not random at all. It was consistent, predictable, almost precise. And when something repeats with that kind of precision, it usually carries a message. The message is not that you are incompatible with everything, it's that you are being guided away from what cannot support who you truly are becoming. At first, this realization can feel unsettling because it challenges everything you were taught about belonging. You were taught that belonging is something you earn by adapting well enough, adjusting long enough, proving yourself consistently enough. You were taught that if you feel out of place, you must try harder to integrate, try harder to be accepted, try harder to be understood. But your life experience keeps contradicting that idea. No matter how sincerely you try, full integration never lasts. Something always interrupts it, something always shifts. And eventually you begin to understand that the interruptions are not failures of effort. They are signals of misalignment. Misalignment is subtle but powerful. It's the quiet discomfort that appears even when everything seems fine. on the surface. It's the strange emptiness that follows achievements that were supposed to fulfill you. It's the tension you feel when you laugh along with others but sense no real connection beneath the interaction. Misalignment doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just feels like quiet disconnection that slowly drains your energy over time. And because you are sensitive to inner truth, you cannot ignore that feeling indefinitely. Your awareness keeps pulling your attention back to it, asking you to notice, to question, to respond. This is why you may have spent much of your life walking away from things that others would have stayed in comfortably. Not because you are restless, but because you are responsive. When something stops resonating with your deeper self, your system registers it almost immediately. You feel the shift emotionally, mentally, even physically. Your motivation fades, your enthusiasm weakens, your presence feels divided. And even if you try to push through, the internal friction grows stronger until remaining in place feels heavier than leaving. Many people override this inner signal. They suppress it for the sake of security, approval, or familiarity. But you struggle to do that for long. Something inside you refuses prolonged self-betrayal. That refusal is not weakness, it is integrity operating at a deep level. Your internal world is structured in such a way that authenticity is not optional. It is necessary for psychological and emotional balance. And because of that, environments that require you to fragment yourself, to think one thing, feel another, and present something else entirely, become unsustainable. Over time, you begin to notice another pattern. Every time you leave something that no longer fits, you don't just lose, you also gain. You gain clarity, you gain self-understanding, you gain sharper awareness of what feels true and what does not. Each departure refines your perception, each ending strengthens your discernment. Slowly, without realizing it at first, you are developing an internal guidance system that becomes more precise with every experience. This guidance system doesn't operate through loud instructions or obvious signs. It works through subtle signals, a sense of expansion when something aligns, a sense of contraction when it doesn't, a quiet feeling of peace when you are moving in the right direction, even if the path is uncertain, a persistent unease when something looks right externally but feels wrong internally. Learning to trust these signals is part of your growth, and that trust cannot develop if you constantly override your instincts just to maintain external belonging. Another layer of this experience is the realization that many environments are built on unconscious conformity. People don't always connect because they deeply understand each other. Often they connect because they share similar conditioning, similar fears, similar unexamined assumptions. This creates social cohesion, but it can also create limitation. When everyone agrees to remain within certain boundaries of thought and behavior, anyone who naturally moves beyond those boundaries will feel out of place. You are often that person, not because you are trying to disrupt anything, but because your awareness naturally extends further. You question what others accept automatically. You reflect where others react. You seek meaning where others seek comfort. And this difference changes how you experience shared spaces. What feels stable to others may feel restrictive to you. What feels normal to others may feel incomplete to you. And when you express perspectives shaped by deeper reflection, people may not always know how to meet you there. This doesn't mean they are incapable. It simply means they are not moving at the same depth or pace of awareness. Growth is not synchronized across people. Everyone evolves at different speeds, in different directions, through different experiences. Your path happens to involve intense inner movement, and intense movement naturally creates distance from those who are remaining still. But here is something important that begins to emerge as you continue evolving. The distance you feel from others is not purely separation, it is also perspective. Because you stand slightly outside many social patterns, you can see them more clearly. You observe emotional dynamics, behavioral cycles, and unspoken motivations that people inside those patterns rarely notice. This observational awareness becomes one of your greatest strengths. It allows you to understand human behavior with unusual clarity. It allows you to see connections others miss. It allows you to recognize truth even when it is hidden beneath layers of appearance. At times, this awareness can feel isolating. Seeing more can create a sense of standing alone in your perception. But it also gives you insight, empathy, and wisdom that cannot be gained through passive participation. You are not just living within life's structures, you are learning how they function from the inside and the outside simultaneously, and that dual perspective is rare. As you continue to grow, another realization begins to take shape. Perhaps you were never meant to build your identity around where you belong. Perhaps your identity is meant to form independently of environment. When identity is environment-based, it shifts every time circumstances change. But when identity is internally grounded, it remains stable no matter where you go. And your life, with all its movement and transitions, has been training you to build that internal stability. You have learned how to enter unfamiliar spaces without completely losing yourself. You have learned how to leave familiar spaces without completely collapsing. You have learned how to adapt without dissolving your core. These are not small skills. They are signs of deep psychological resilience and self-awareness. While others rely on external structure to feel secure, you are learning to generate security from within. This internal grounding changes how you experience loneliness as well. In earlier stages, loneliness may have felt like emptiness, like something missing. But gradually, solitude begins to feel different. It becomes space rather than absence. Space to think clearly. Space to feel honestly. Space to grow without interference. You begin to see that being alone does not automatically mean being disconnected. Sometimes it means being undistracted enough to hear your own truth fully. And from that space, something new starts forming, a sense of quiet self-trust. Not loud confidence, not dramatic certainty, but steady trust. Trust that your perception has value. Trust that your feelings carry information. Trust that your path, even when unconventional, is meaningful. This trust becomes the foundation of a different kind of belonging, one that does not depend on being surrounded by people who mirror you, but on being aligned with the person you are continuously becoming. Eventually, you realize that not fitting in has been shaping you into someone who cannot be easily defined by external categories. You are not limited to one role, one identity, one environment, or one expectation. You are adaptive, perceptive, and internally guided. And while that makes traditional belonging more complex, it also makes your existence more expansive. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is excluded and start seeing yourself as someone who moves freely between spaces, learning from each without being confined by any. You are not rootless, you are widely rooted. Your sense of self is not planted in one place, but woven through experience, awareness, and growth. And perhaps the deepest realization of all begins to emerge quietly beneath everything else. The reason you don't fit in anywhere is because your life is not meant to be contained by predefined structures. You are not here to occupy space exactly as it was given to you. You are here to evolve within it, reshape your relationship to it, and sometimes even transform it simply by being fully present as who you are. Not fitting in is not your limitation. It is the space that allows your expansion, and the more you understand that, the less you will try to force belonging, and the more naturally it will begin to find you in forms you never expected. Eventually, after moving through all these phases of confusion, separation, questioning, and growth, something begins to shift inside you in a way that is subtle but irreversible. The question is no longer just why don't I fit in, it becomes what is this experience shaping me into? Because after enough time has passed, after enough environments have come and gone, after enough connections have formed and dissolved, you start to notice that you are no longer reacting to not fitting in the same way you once did. The sharpness of rejection softens, the urgency to belong everywhere fades, the need to be understood by everyone loses its grip, and in its place, something quieter but far more powerful begins to emerge: self-recognition. You begin to see yourself clearly, not through the reflection of others' expectations, but through direct awareness of your own nature. You see your depth without apologizing for it. You see your sensitivity without labeling it as weakness. You see your independence without mistaking it for isolation. And for the first time, you understand that what once made you feel out of place is the very thing that gives your life direction, meaning, and uniqueness. Because when you truly examine your journey, you realize something profound. Every place you didn't belong forced you to discover more of who you actually are. If you had been easily accepted everywhere, you might have shaped yourself according to whatever environment surrounded you. You might have blended so completely that you never questioned whether what you were becoming was truly you. But not fitting in interrupted that process. It forced reflection, it forced awareness, it forced choice, and slowly, over time, you stopped building your identity based on external acceptance and started building it based on internal truth. That shift changes everything. You no longer walk into spaces asking, "Will they accept me?" You begin asking, "Does this align with me?" That single change transforms how you experience the world. You stop chasing belonging as something to obtain and start recognizing alignment as something to honor. You stop shrinking to maintain comfort and start expanding into authenticity, even when expansion feels unfamiliar. There is also a growing realization that belonging was never meant to be something universal in your life. Some people are meant to root deeply in one place, one community, one identity. Their stability is expressed through continuity, but your stability is expressed through coherence, the ability to remain internally consistent even while everything around you changes. You are not designed for permanent sameness. You are designed for conscious movement. And when you accept that fully, the narrative of your life reorganizes itself. What once looked like instability now looks like guidance. What once felt like exclusion now feels like selection. What once seemed like loss now reveals itself as refinement. You begin to see that every time something didn't work out, it created space for something more aligned. Every time someone misunderstood you, it clarified the kind of understanding you truly need. Every time you felt alone, it strengthened your relationship with your own inner voice. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Everything participated in shaping your awareness. There is a deep peace that comes from recognizing that you are not drifting through life without direction. You are being shaped through experience with incredible precision. Even the painful moments had purpose. Especially the painful moments. They stripped away illusions, dependencies, and borrowed identities. They revealed what remains when everything superficial falls away. And what remains is you, not the version that tried to fit expectations, but the version that exists beneath them. As this understanding settles in, your relationship with loneliness changes in a profound way. Loneliness no longer feels like proof that something is missing. It begins to feel like spaciousness that allows you to remain connected to yourself without distortion. You discover that solitude can be grounding rather than empty. You realize that being alone does not mean being disconnected from life, it means being deeply present with it. From this place, connection itself begins to transform. You no longer seek connection to escape yourself. You seek connection that complements who you already are. You no longer tolerate shallow resonance just to avoid being alone. You wait patiently, sometimes quietly, for real alignment, and when it appears, it feels unmistakable. There is ease without performance, depth without force, understanding without explanation. These connections may be fewer, but they are real. And real connection nourishes in ways that constant social presence never could. You also begin to understand your role in the lives of others differently. For much of your journey, you may have felt like an observer, someone slightly outside the flow of ordinary experience. But now you realize that this perspective allows you to bring something valuable into every space you enter. Your presence invites authenticity. Your awareness encourages reflection. Your honesty disrupts illusion gently but powerfully. You don't have to try to change anything. Simply being fully yourself changes the atmosphere around you. People sense when someone is not pretending. They sense when someone is grounded internally rather than seeking validation externally. Your very existence becomes an invitation, not for others to become like you, but for them to become more honest with themselves. And this is where the deepest meaning of not fitting in reveals itself. You were never meant to simply occupy existing spaces. You were meant to bring consciousness into them. You were meant to move through environments without becoming unconsciously shaped by them. You were meant to remain aware where others drift into automatic patterns. You were meant to embody authenticity in a world that often rewards imitation. That path cannot be lived comfortably from within complete conformity. It requires difference. It requires the courage to stand slightly apart so you can see clearly. By now, you may notice that you no longer envy those who seem to fit in everywhere. You understand that their path is different from yours, not better or worse, simply different. Some people experience life through belonging to established structures. You experience life through conscious engagement with change, growth, and awareness, both paths of value, but yours requires a level of inner grounding that only comes from repeated experiences of standing on your own. And the most beautiful part is this: eventually, you stop trying to find a single place where you belong permanently. Instead, you carry belonging with you. It becomes a quality of presence rather than a feature of location. Wherever you are fully yourself, you belong in that moment. Wherever you are aligned internally, you are at home within your own being. This realization dissolves a lifetime of tension. The search ends not because you finally found the perfect environment, but because you discovered that the true center of belonging was never outside you to begin with. So now, when you enter new spaces, you do not arrive as someone hoping to be accepted. You arrive as someone who is present, aware, and open. Some places will resonate, some will not. Some people will understand, some will not. And that is no longer a personal wound. It is simply the natural movement of life, expressing diversity of paths, perspectives, and levels of awareness. You stop forcing permanence where only temporary experience is meant to exist. You stop resisting change when change is guiding you forward. You stop interpreting difference as distance from life and start seeing it as a unique way of participating in it. And perhaps the most liberating realization of all is this: there was never anything wrong with you for not fitting in. The discomfort you felt was not evidence of failure. It was evidence of sensitivity to truth. It was evidence of inner movement. It was evidence that your life was asking more from you than simple conformity. You were not designed to disappear into the background of collective expectation. You were designed to live consciously, grow continuously, and embody authenticity even when it sets you apart. So if you still find yourself standing in places where you feel different, if you still notice moments where you cannot fully merge with what surrounds you, understand what that really means now. It means you are aware. It means you are aligned with your own unfolding. It means you are living honestly enough to notice where truth is present and where it is not. And that awareness, that unwavering connection to what is real within you, is a deeper form of belonging than any external acceptance could ever provide. You don't fit in everywhere, because your life was never meant to be contained by everywhere. You fit where authenticity lives. You fit where awareness is welcomed. You fit where truth is allowed to exist without disguise. And most importantly, you fit within yourself. And once that becomes unshakable, the world no longer feels like a place you must search for belonging in. It becomes a place you move through with quiet certainty, knowing that wherever you stand in truth, you are exactly where you are meant to be.